You are listening to a bonus episode of USBS, where we discuss the historical BS of the U.S. These are the episodes that cover a wide variety of historical topics.
Never know what you're going to get.
Could be a person, could be an event. Either way, we promise that we'll have a good time and learn maybe something along the way.
It's always a good time with us.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
Let's get into it.
Yes.
We have, let's see, our sources for this week. We have the Smithsonian magazine.
Ooh.
We have a website it's called Grunge.com.
That sounds fun.
And History 101.
Oh.
So.
I took that in college.
I did too. I took a few history classes in college, actually.
Yep.
So this week we are covering a very interesting subject. Tomatoes. Yes. And stick with me. I promise the topic of tomatoes is worth it.
All right.
You're not.
I don't like them cold.
Well, for almost 200 years, tomatoes were one of the most feared fruits in the Western world.
Feared.
For 200 years.
Feared.
Like,
he has a tomato, run!
You think I'm kidding. Absolutely, yes. So the tomato was...
Wait, was this like people like on stage like, oh no, I'm doing a bad job, he has a tomato? Like, I've seen that.
Yes.
Oh my.
That has something to do with it as well in Europe when people would throw tomatoes on the stage.
That's what I'm saying.
It's because people thought they were deadly.
I just thought it was because they made messes.
Nope.
Awesome. Okay, continue.
So,
I'm even more intrigued.
Exactly. And they were so feared, in fact, that in 1820, tomatoes were put on trial in Salem, New Jersey.
Put on trial. So
this week, the BS that we've uncovered is the Salem tomato trial.
Well, how would you punish tomatoes?
You'll see.
I mean...
So the popularity of tomatoes really grew in the 1500s. Tomatoes were a staple in Aztec cuisine. And when Spanish conquistadors returned to their homeland from Mexico and Mesoamerica, they brought tomato seeds with them. Then the Spaniards took the fruit with them to their colonized countries in Asia and the Caribbean. But when it was brought to England, it was avoided as if it were the plague. The Europeans called them the poison apple. And before we get into the reasoning behind what was actually happening at this time, we have to go a little bit into the tomato itself.
Okay.
And I'm telling you guys, this is truly interesting. So we'll get there. Deals with poison, deals with actual things. So aphrodisiacs.
Oh, heavens.
So, yeah. An Italian herbalist named Pietro Andre Mattaholi.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, maybe I said that right. He was one of the earliest people to reference tomatoes, and he actually classified them as a nightshade and a mandrake. Do you know what a mandrake is? The other word for mandrake. Aphrodisiac.
Huh.
So.
All I could think of was Harry Potter and the
when
mandrake root and the screaming.
Well, mandrakes are a class of aphrodisiacs. So, some people might know the term nightshade from true crime because of the plant Atropa belladonna, which is also called belladonna and deadly nightshade.
I mean, I didn't know because of that, but I did know that nightshade was bad.
Belladonna is extremely toxic when ingested, and it contains tropane alkaloids, which an example of a tropane alkaloid is going to be like scopolamine, which is what they'll give women who are pregnant, who are like really sick. You'll sometimes get scopolamine patches for like seasickness.
Ah, okay.
And cocaine.
Oh.
So, just whatever.
Just
whatever
run in the mill and then
yeah.
cocaine.
Cocaine.
Okay.
I mean, Coca-Cola. So,
well,
who knows? These alkaloids are known to cause delirium and hallucinations.
Sounds like a fun time.
I mean, depends on what you're looking for, but could be.
I'm just kidding, by the way.
As for a mandrake, it is referred to in early texts in Hebrew as, I believe it's dudaim, which is roughly translated to love apple. So,
Well, there you go.
these classifications not only made the tomato seem poisonous, but also as a sign of temptation.
Illicit.
Mm-hmm. In 1597, John Gerard came out with a publication called Herbal. And it's Herbal because it's Herball. Herbal.
Herbal.
This text is what really did the tomato in, honestly. Although the text was mostly plagiarized from agricultural work studies done in 1553. And it also was not entirely accurate. It was widely produced, and so it still made a big impact. Gerard wrote that the whole plant was considered to be poisonous instead of focusing on the small, minuscule parts of the tomato plant that people needed to be cautious of. Gerard's text began the 200-year fear of tomatoes. In the Smithsonian article, they said, quote, John Parkinson, the apothecary to King James I and botanist for King Charles I, proclaimed that while love apples were eaten by the people in the hot countries to cool and quench the heat and thirst of hot stomachs, British gardeners grew them only for curiosity and for the beauty of the fruit.
Okay.
So he was essentially saying, like, yeah, people in hot countries, like, eat them because they quench your thirst. And, like, they get hot enough, so maybe it kills everything. But we're only growing them because they're pretty.
But tomatoes aren't pretty, guys.
Well, in these times, you were most likely to see tomatoes as decor in people's homes. So instead of like people put like a basket of like apples and put them all pretty on the counter, they would do tomatoes.
Oh,
instead,
y'all, tomatoes get bad so easily and quickly. And fun fact, I didn't know that a word that I had used my entire life was not generally used in America until I was in middle school. And it has to do with tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when tomatoes get all yucky and like, you know,
mealy.
No, not mealy, but like when they get a bad spot in them and they get like fungusy.
Yeah,
and
I call that mealy. It's
okay. Well, we always said fusty.
Oh yeah,
I told you this.
My boyfriend uses that term because he's a cook, so he uses that term sometimes for different things.
Like fusty is a Scottish term. I didn't know that. I brought that out when I was in middle school and I was with my friends. They were like, I'm sorry, what? And I was like, it's fusty. It's gross. They were like, what are you talking about? And, you know, middle school, it's bad to be different at all. So, of course. So, yeah. So when tomatoes get yuck and, you know, like, oh, ugh, they're fusty. So there you go.
Interesting. Yeah. My boyfriend uses that term when he talks about certain vegetables or certain things like that. So
I like him even more.
I've learned quite a few things as far as cooking goes.
Like how to.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, how to correctly, at least. So later in 1710, the first reference to the tomato was published in the British colonies by William Salmon. So a salmon wrote about tomatoes.
Like a fish?
Like a fish. That's how it's spelled.
There you go.
Doctors started
for not pronouncing the L.
Salmon?
Pet peeve.
Salmon.
Pet peeve. I love my husband who pronounces salmon. That L. I get on him all the time.
Yeah, it's... doctors started warning people and advising against eating them and claimed that they had seen effects of eating the tomatoes. The effects they claimed to see included appendicitis and stomach cancer.
Oh, heavens.
But are you ready for why?
Oh, dear.
Even at the end of the sentence, I put LOL. Because the tomato skins adhered to the lining of the stomach, therefore causing stomach cancer.
Oh, bless.
I just put ... LOL.
I mean,
Like they come off the tomato and intentionally like adhere to the side of your stomach.
well, I mean, if you've ever like blanched a tomato and you've seen the skin like that, those suckers will stick to you.
Yeah, but not like you got enough stomach acid to
you're
erode that away.
But if you see it outside of the stomach, I mean,
It's
peels will stick to you.
It's funny. However, remember I said that I'll get to the real reason that tomatoes were poisonous?
I'm ready.
The culprit was actually what they were eating off of, not what they were eating. It turned out the pewter plates of the wealthy contained significantly high lead content. The acid in the tomatoes brought out this poison, and people actually started dying of lead poisoning. But it was the tomatoes that was causing the poison to leach out of the plates
because of their acidity.
because of the acidity.
Yikes.
So, according, just FYI, in case you needed to know, lead poisoning isn't too much of a big issue today. Sometimes in older houses, people have lead paint. But in case you're ever wondering, or you think you may be poisoned as well. According to the Mayo Clinic, lead poisoning symptoms include headaches, abdominal pain, high blood pressure, muscle pain, mood disorders, and digestive disorders. So, you can see how people would think that, or these doctors, we'll call so-and-so doctors.
Medical professionals?
Right, in the 1700s, were saying that it was causing appendicitis and stomach cancer because it did cause abdominal pain and digestive disorder and muscle pain and different things like that. But yeah, it was just the lead. It wasn't the tomatoes at all.
Just the lead from their plates.
Just that.
So, but, you know, by association, the tomatoes did cause it. They did play a part in causing it, but it wasn't the tomatoes themselves.
The implication by everyone was that tomatoes themselves were poisonous. It took them many years to put two and two together, because if you ate off of the pewter plates and you didn't have anything acidic, there wasn't too much of a risk of you dying or anything from them. So they were thinking that the tomatoes were poisonous because they were eating off the plates.
Thing that was added in. I mean,
so it's so funny. So,
well, not funny.
It is funny. You met me. So now I get to introduce to you the other star of this story. His name is Robert Gibbon Johnson, also known as Colonel Johnson. I do not think you are ready for the list of things he did.
Oh, dear.
I will say that he is from Salem, New Jersey.
And everything is legal in New Jersey.
Correct. And like I said, he was known as a colonel. He was a gentleman farmer.
Oh.
Which is a farm that is not for profit. It's just like a fun farm where you just live there. But so he was a gentleman farmer, a historian, a horticulturalist, a judge, a soldier, and a statesman. All of it.
Just a couple of things.
Just a little bit. Colonel Johnson was born on July 23rd of 1771 at his great-uncle's home called New Netherland Farm.
Oh.
He was the only child born to his parents, Robert and Jane. Then, in March of 1778, unfortunately, the British raided his home in Salem during the Revolutionary War, and several townspeople were killed. Their home was the largest in the area, and so the British took over their home. And the family was imprisoned in their house for several days.
Not cool.
Even though he was only 7 at the time, he is the one who led his mother away to safety.
Oh, that's a good boy.
Yes. Eventually, he went to Newark Academy in Delaware and then on to Princeton, where he graduated in 1790. He decided to practice law, but instead he focused on agriculture for most of his life, and he managed the family estate. He went on to marry Hannah Carney, on June 19th of 1798, and the couple had 4 children during their marriage. However, only 2 of them survived past infancy.
Oh.
They had a daughter named Anne and a son named Robert. Hannah. And then Robert was the dad. Right after the couple's marriage, Colonel Johnson built a house called Johnson Hall, which today is still located in Salem. The structure itself did move from the original location, but you can still see Johnson Hall today in Salem, New Jersey.
That is amazing to me that they move houses.
Yeah. They had to move it because they built a courthouse in the original location, but they just picked up the house and moved it to another area.
Have you seen this happen before? I've watched this. It is the coolest thing.
It's one of the coolest and scariest things I've ever seen.
Correct.
It's
like I'm holding my breath while I'm watching it on TV.
It's terrifying because we know there are like manufactured homes where they do like take
Half
the
house.
home. Yeah. And they put it together like on the land once they get there, and it's a house. Like it's completely
but it's
put
meant
together
to be mobile.
Right. But then you take a house that is not mobile,
right?
And you make it mobile.
Like it was built in this one place, and that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I had an uncle who has a very large farm kind of in the outer Birmingham area. And for the longest time, there was this small house on his property. It was kind of like falling down and everything, but it was his grandfather's house at one point. So for the longest time, it was really creepy, like real creepy at night. And it was right beside like their house on the property. So you would see it at night, but it was real creepy. And eventually he wanted to move it because he built like another little house on the property that was like, it was like a, he kind of used it as, what do you call it? Like a
mother-in-law suite?
No, like there wasn't running water. There wasn't like anything like a
pump house or
it had a bed in it. It had a living room. It had everything like that, but it was just like bare minimum essential. So he would leave like his house and then he would go like to the other side of the property and stay in this other thing. Was it
his fortress of solitude?
I guess so. It was really cool, but he moved the house and he moved it. And so I got to actually physically see them move the house, and it was
nerve-wracking.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It was so scary. So, because he was trying to keep as much of the support structure as he could, but I mean, the house was falling apart. Like it was so old. So yeah, I've seen it happen before, and it is quite terrifying in person.
I can imagine.
And then I'm pretty sure once they got it to where it was supposed to be, and they went to get it off of the trucks, I'm pretty sure they had like a big issue. I think a lot of it fell apart then, but it is very weird to see a physical house being moved.
Yes.
So Colonel Johnson's first wife, Hannah, only lived until the age of 30, and their son Robert was still young.
Oh.
A few years later, he married 32-year-old Juliana Zant Zinger.
That is
I knew you would love it.
Name.
Zant Zinger.
Zant Zinger.
They were married 41 years.
Wow.
Before she died, and that couple did not have any children together. So Juliana helped raise Hannah and Robert's original children, Anne and Robert. But they never had any children themselves. So I just always thought, I was like, that's sweet.
That is.
As far as his military service goes, he saw a good bit of action during the Whiskey Rebellion. He continued to rise through the ranks and was known to be an expert equestrian, even into his 70s.
Wow.
And at that time, that was like 100. So he was also commissioner of the loan office for the county, and he provided mortgages to local farmers to help with their cash flow. He established the first Presbyterian church in Salem and was a member of the New Jersey legislature for more than one term. He served for several terms as judge, was a trustee for a Delaware college as well as the Princeton Theological Seminary, and he was a founding member of the New Jersey Historical Society.
I mean, he sounds like a very interesting guy.
Yes, very. Had a lot He had a lot on his plate.
But I mean,
not a pewter plate, but a plate.
But I mean, he sounds like you know, the guy
he was in everything.
Yeah, that you would love to just sit down and talk to. Like he would just be really interesting, just to sit and just have a conversation with. And he could probably speak with anybody. You know what I mean?
Well, and because not only was he like a judge, and he was a state legislature, he worked for the state legislature and everything like that. But they also said a majority of his life he spent working on his family's estate. Yeah. So like he was a farmer essentially.
Yeah. So he was a common man, but an uncommon man at the same time.
Exactly. So it's very, very interesting getting to read about him. And I put, so WTF does he have to do with tomatoes? Along with all of his other accolades, he was an active horticulturalist, and he was also the president of the New Jersey Horticultural Society, as well as everything else. Just needed another thing to fill his day.
If he was active, if he did the farm, it makes sense that he would be interested in that. And it sounds like whatever he did, he didn't just dabble.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He did it.
Yeah. So that makes sense that he wants to know about and be involved in.
Oh yeah. He was just fascinating. He had a lot in his life. So clearly he had a bit of knowledge when it came to agriculture, and he did not believe that tomatoes were poisonous. In fact, he ate them regularly.
Oh.
He brought tomato seeds home one time after traveling abroad, and he started to hold yearly competitions on who could grow the largest tomato.
Oh.
But people still thought they were poisonous, and the townspeople thought that Colonel Johnson was absolutely crazy. Why would this man have a tomato growing competition when it could kill him?
Crazy Colonel.
Insane. So as a judge, he decided to put the tomato on trial itself. He decided the best way to do that was by demonstration.
Well,
on June 28th of 1820, he stood on the steps of the courthouse and addressed a crowd of around 2,000 people. The following is an excerpt from the Salem County Historical Society. Quote, Colonel Johnson announced that he would eat a tomato, also called the wolf peach, Jerusalem apple, or love apple, on the steps of the county courthouse at noon. That morning in 1820, about 2,000 people were jammed into the town square. The spectators began to hoot and jeer. Then 15 minutes later, Colonel Johnson emerged from his mansion and headed up Market Street towards the courthouse. The crowd cheered. The firemen's band struck up a lively tune. He was a very impressive-looking man as he walked along the street. He was dressed in his usual black suit with white ruffles, black shoes and gloves, tricorn hat, and cane. At the courthouse steps, he spoke to the crowd about the history of the tomato. He picked a choice one from the basket on the steps and held it up so that it glistened in the sun. He said, to help dispel the tall tales, the fantastic fables you have been hearing, and to prove to you that it is not poisonous, I am going to eat one right now. There was not a sound as the colonel dramatically brought the tomato to his lips and took a bite. A woman in the crowd screamed and fainted, but no one paid attention to her. They were all...
Do it, Colonel.
I mean...
It's not worth it. You have so much to live for.
They were all watching Colonel James as he took one bite after another. He raised both arms and again bit into one, then the other. The crowd cheered and the firemen's band blared a song. He's done it, they shouted. He's still alive.
I'm so sorry. This is ridiculous.
So that's what happened on the day that the tomato was put on trial. The people at the courthouse were so nervous that Colonel Johnson was in fact going to drop dead immediately that they had a doctor on standby. Just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case something were to happen. So,
oh, my word.
This wasn't the end of the suspicions around tomatoes. Although tomato recipes started flooding the local papers and people started growing them to eat themselves, A new concern arose in the 1830s when the tomato was cultivated in New York. A new menace, if you will, called the green tomato worm.
Oh, no.
This death monster measured at approximately 3 to 4 inches long.
Was it the hornworm?
With a horn sticking out of its back.
Oh, yeah.
It started to plague tomato patches across the state.
They glow in a black light. Did you know that?
Yes.
Did I steal your thunder?
No.
Okay.
They didn't have black lights back then.
Well, I didn't know if you were going to come to modern day. Sorry.
So, famous writer, which we know him, Ralph Waldo Emerson,
we do.
Stated they were, quote, an object of much terror, it being currently regarded as poisonous and imparting a poisonous quality to the fruit of it should chance to crawl upon it.
What?
A man captured one of the elusive beasts in a jar and said that it was, quote, poisonous as a rattlesnake, which was, quote, a new enemy to human existence.
That's a little crazy.
Thankfully, an entomologist, which is someone who studies insects, named Benjamin Walsh stepped forward and said, quote, now that we have become familiarized with these fears, all have vanished, and we have become quite indifferent towards this creature, knowing it will be merely an ugly-looking worm which eats some of the leaves of the tomato. Fears were finally put to rest, and the tomato became one of the most sought-after crops in the United States. And by 1897, a wholesale fruit and vegetable vendor by the name of Joseph, we'll call him Joseph C. for now, he came along and experimented with canning tomatoes and saw that they kept really well inside containers. He canned them to make condensed tomato soup, and Joseph Campbell is the founder of Campbell's Soup Company.
Cool.
So that is how the tomato was put on trial.
That's awesome.
That's the story. So tomatoes, they were a menace to society. Then we had the poisonous rattlesnake that tried to do us all in.
That's really just the hornworm. And I gotta say, now the hornworm,
they do look pretty nasty.
They do, but they're pretty. I mean, I know. I mean, it's a caterpillar, a worm.
Yeah,
caterpillar.
It looks like a caterpillar,
but they're really kind of cool looking, and they glow in a black light.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this because both my sister and my brother grew tomatoes the past 2 summers, I believe, and they got the black light out because they were getting into their tomatoes. And
it's a really good way to find them.
It really is. Mm-hmm. And they're, it was really cool. My sister sent a picture. She was like, they really do glow. And I mean, it was pretty cool. And man, those things are thick.
They are. They're pretty, which, I mean, I can understand. One, just 10 years ago, everyone thought that the tomato was poisonous and it was going to kill them on the spot.
And now this big, thick, juicy looking
nasty worm with a horn coming out of its back.
But it's not really a horn.
Well, that's what they called it. And I mean, I get it, but it's just so funny to think of like a time when people thought that tomatoes were just like poisonous. Yeah. Like you could not eat them. And it was just funny because they were referring to it as the love apple.
Yes.
And the poisonous apple.
What do they call it? The wolf's
peach.
Wolf's peach.
That's what you can start calling it from now on. When you tell your husband to go pick up something, you can tell him, I need you to pick up 3 wolf's peaches while you're there. That's and hilarious. See how long it takes him to figure it out.
I have to say, now my mom, she could eat a tomato like she would just eat. She could eat
like
an apple, like he did on the steps. I don't love tomatoes that much. Now I'll eat tomatoes in a salad.
I only recently started eating tomatoes in a salad,
but I don't like them if they're cold.
Like I do like cold tomatoes. I don't want to.
I don't like if they've been refrigerated and they're really, really cold. I don't like that. But
no, not that cold.
Yeah, that's what I don't like them like that. But yeah, Mom could just sprinkle salt on it and just go to town. Like eat them.
My
like an
boyfriend
apple.
Probably could do that. He honestly could. Mine, if I eat a tomato, it's got to be sliced. Like if I'm eating a tomato by itself, and our international listeners are going to be like, "What the?" You have to slice the tomato. Have good thick slices. Can't just have run of the mill slices. You put salt and pepper on it. Stick with me, guys. One, you have to use a particular kind. Duke's mayonnaise on the tomato. A little bit, not a lot, just a little bit.
For tomato sandwich, I'm on
just
board.
The tomato. Well, I have
a slice of cheese.
Well, I have a gluten allergy, so I have to be careful eating. Well, I mean, I'll eat it, but a lot of times when I was younger, and my granny would do that. Look,
I'm a Bama mayonnaise girl, by the way.
Duke's is way better, but we're not here to debate that. What we can debate, and I believe everyone in the United States should be on the same page with this, and if you're not, I apologize. But I think universally everyone can agree that Miracle Whip is trash.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's disgusting.
It's not. I remember mayonnaise.
One time, and I know that my mom is listening, but I remember one time when I was younger. First of all, we went to the beach.
That's always a fun time.
But, so we went to the beach and we were staying in someone's camper. And I know she knows where this is going already. Because we stayed in someone's camper at the beach. We were going with someone whose family lived down there. And it was in Panama City. So we stayed at this place that was like an RV, like campground. This campground was called Raccoon River. Raccoon River. And it was like a mile away from the beach. So anyways, I digress.
Still close.
So one day, the Raccoon River, it just cracked me up. So one day we go back to the camper. I think like we had been somewhere.
Like a cute trash panda though.
Let me tell you, this place was nothing. It was bad. Okay. Anyways, I'll never forget. We went to go check in, and the lady at the front desk, she was like, "Welcome to Raccoon River," and I was like, "Oh." So, anyways, that's always been the joke. Is it's a Raccoon River, Rat-coon.
No.
So I remember one day we went back to the like RV, and we were going to eat lunch, and I will never forget. My mom was making sandwiches, and this. It's one of those things that's like the weirdest things that you remember as a child. And she made the sandwiches with Miracle Whip.
Oh, no.
And I was so hungry. And I was so mad. I refused to eat it because Miracle Whip is disgusting. And everybody knows that. And I was crying because I did not want. And keep in mind, I was in like middle school. I was not a small child. I was like going into middle school. Like it was a whole thing. And so I remember vividly, hysterically crying over Miracle Whip because I was like, it is so disgusting. I don't even know why it's a thing. And let me tell you something else too. If you look at the thing of Miracle Whip,
she has her finger out, guys.
I know. I'm pointing around. If you look at the thing of Miracle Whip in the store, it does not say that it's mayonnaise.
It does not.
It says that it's like
not even mayonnaise.
It's called a sandwich dressing.
Yeah, that's
disgusting.
Why I said it's not even mayonnaise.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, but Bama's the best.
I can't. It's just. Which actually, so as I've told y'all before, speaking of like, we're going to get on the mayonnaise trail. My boyfriend's also like a huge fan of Duke's mayonnaise, and that's the one that we always get. And
Duke's is okay. I will get Duke's
is really
Bama
good.
Is not available.
Duke's has a little bit of a different taste to it. There is a reason to it. I can't remember why, but it's the reason that I like it better. Whatever's in it. So, anyways, there is a Japanese mayonnaise, and it's called Kewpie. And it is so good. And a lot of like really fancy chefs, when they're going to use mayonnaise, but they don't want to say they're using mayonnaise, they say that they're going to use Kewpie. There's actually some in the fridge. It comes in a very weird bottle. Anyways, but it's called Kewpie. And I had put it on something one day and we were talking about it, and he went to eat it and he was like, they really just put Duke's mayonnaise into a different container, didn't they? And I was like, and I sat there for a second and we like tried both of them. And I was like, they really did. Like, and he goes, that was not he keep in mind, they label it as Japanese mayonnaise, and you have to go specifically get it at like the Japanese market.
Right.
And he lives close-ish to one. So we've been to the Japanese market multiple times, or the Asian mart. And he goes, I mean, Kewpie's really good. It's not worth the $8 a bottle. $8. I looked at him like he had lost his ever-loving mind. I was like, what?
It's how much now? What?
I bought a jug of Duke's mayonnaise for like $6. Like, what are we doing? But oh gosh, the Miracle Whip. I'm scarred for life, honestly. Dear. So my granny would only use Bama mayonnaise. This was before Duke's was like a thing. So she would always use Bama mayonnaise. But oh gosh, like if I am telling you, I apologize if anyone listening likes Miracle Whip, but it's trash and that's where it belongs. It's just how it's how the world turns. It's just is, honestly. I don't know.
Facts is facts.
I don't know why they sell it. And every time, it's just funny because I like, as y'all should know by now, we're like 30 episodes deep at this point. So y'all should know I'm weird. Every time I'll go to the store to get mayonnaise, I always look over at the Miracle Whip to see any of
give it some side eye.
I'll see if any of them are missing. Like just to see, like, is anybody buying any of this garbage? And then like,
so mean.
Let me tell you, if somebody comes up beside me and grabs it, I will stare at them like I'm
sorry. Did you mean to pick that up?
Did you have COVID where you lost your taste and smell?
Stop it.
Because I did. I did lose my taste and smell for a while. And I understand you can't tell the difference. You don't know the errors of your ways. But this is gross.
Stop it. You're so bad.
Well, I can't. But I mean, I'm sure there are tons of other people. Like, I'm sure people outside of our country are like,
but can I
why do you use mayonnaise?
My mother doesn't like mayonnaise at all. Like,
see, that's what I'm saying. Like, that would make sense because she's not from here. Like, I'm sure that wasn't a thing.
On a tomato sandwich where I would put, and I don't like a lot of mayonnaise, I will say. I mean, just,
I do.
Just enough
like
to moisten the bread is all I like. Just make a barrier. But Mother puts butter on her tomato sandwiches.
My granny used to do that. She would put butter on her tomato sandwiches.
So
a tomato sandwich, if you get a good tomato sandwich, a good tomato sandwich is good. Yeah. I told you about, let me tell you, I'm blessed. I'm blessed with this boyfriend. He made this, I told you about the tomato salad.
You did.
That if I were on death row, this would be my last meal. Like it would.
Or wait, what about the hash brown?
Oh, that is true. So he did make oh, let me tell you. Those are my two things. Death row, those are the two things I'm going to have. And I'm going to be like, look, if he's gone, you're going to have to bring him back from the dead. I don't know what kind of seance we have to have here to make this happen. And people, I can't give away his hash brown secret. I can't give it away. But I will say that it involves a fish and it involves hash browns. And it sounds disgusting. And it's one of the best things I've ever eaten in my entire life. And even when he told me he was going to make it, I told Liam, he said it. And I was like, okay. Sure, honey. Sounds great. And then I ate it and I was like, this is possibly the best thing that I've ever tasted in my entire life.
Her eyes still sparkle when she thinks about it.
That and the tomato salad are so good. We have a restaurant in the area that makes this tomato salad, and that's where he got the recipe from. It's it's not Chez Fonfon or anything like that. I don't even think it's Highlands. It might be like Bottega or something like that. It's one of those restaurants that we have downtown that are like James Beard Award winners and all those.
Fancy.
It was a recipe from one of them, and it says it's a tomato salad. It's not. But it's the best thing that I've ever.
So we're glad that the tomato was found not guilty.
Yes. Because had I not ever had this tomato salad in my life,
you'd have a void.
I would have a void that I didn't know was there, but a void nonetheless. Mm-hmm. It's just absolutely amazing. So I'm very, very glad that the tomato was not found to be poisonous. Even though for most of my life, I did not eat tomatoes until I started seeing my boyfriend now. I did not eat tomatoes on things.
We're going to get you into eggs next.
I've done better.
You have. You're branching out.
I made him fried eggs this morning.
I heard you say that earlier.
So that's a branch out for me. Anyways, Big Bad Breakfast has this one thing for breakfast that has eggs. Anyways, I can't continue. It has ham powder in it. I know that sounds weird, guys. I understand.
That sounds a little vile.
We have a lot of Birmingham listeners in this area. Y'all know what Big Bad Breakfast is. I'm just telling you, go look at the menu. I will never steer you wrong, honestly.
Well, I mean,
so
Big Bad Breakfast.
You know, that's just how things are. But, you know, it's fine. Just glad that it just cracks me up that a guy had to go stand on the courthouse steps and eat tomatoes
to show that it's
to
not
one
poisonous.
woman screaming and fainting
Y'all,
out in the road.
That does it for me.
That's hilarious.
Like, really? I wonder if she really fainted. Like, she's probably just, there's always
They
one
said
drama
that
queen.
Oh, that's true.
You know?
There's one you in the audience.
Girl, I don't do that. Come on now.
No, I said just drama. Not to that level. I'm just saying there's got to be one Leah out there.
I am dramatic, I'm not drama.
There's got to be one Leah, and there's got to be one Kayla standing beside her that just looks over like, can you not today?
Look,
can we not?
Look, I'm not that kind of drama.
No, not that kind of drama.
I'm
but
not that
just
kind
saying,
of drama.
There's always got to be one. So I hope you liked our second bonus episode of USBS. So. We have another one coming up that I think y'all will find very interesting. As I said, these are kind of episodes that it's kind of stuff in the U.S. that maybe not a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something you've heard of.
I had not heard of this one. I mean, you mentioned it.
I did. And actually in our episode on 1820, it was one of our events that I discussed.
That was so
in
crazy.
that. And it was just like a line. But yeah, I ended up looking into it and it's crazy. So we have some other things coming up that are going to be very interesting as far as they go. Sometimes it's something that we've always used or we've always heard, and we never really quite knew where that came from. And
so we're going to dig a little deeper.
I'll give you a hint as to next week. We might be covering, we'll say that it is a figure of sorts.
And he wants
it'll be a figure that a lot of people will recognize, and there is a good story behind this figure. So hope that y'all will stick around for that. Got some interesting tidbits in it as well. And I hope that y'all enjoyed our normal episode this week as well. And we have a website where you can find any and all ONUC and really any USBS information that you're looking for. It's onenationundercrime.com. We are One Nation Under Crime on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and at ONUC Pod on Twitter. Go leave us a 5-star review. And if you do, leave a comment. We got to see the comment on there. It counts more if we see a comment.
Yep.
So go leave one on there. We do have a Patreon if you would like to join and help with the cost of making and hosting the show. Keep in mind, we are doing these episodes as a bit of a bonus through the holiday season, but once we get into 2022, they will move over to our Patreon. So just keep that in mind for when that comes up. Thank you guys for listening to the second bonus episode of USBS. We will see you here next time with more BS
from the U.S.
Always remember, regardless of what our first grade teachers told us, there isn't always liberty and justice for all.
Nope.
Goodbye.
Bye.